access. So the squirrel also provides the material for the wings of this fly. So what we'll do is the same again, but this time slightly bigger bunch, because what we're going to do is split the wings. Although again, that's up to yourself. Some people would actually just tie one wing in pointing forwards. So we get rid of the short stuff out of that. Again, I'm going to put it through the hair stacker here. As I said, if you don't have a hair stacker, don't worry, just take it off the bunch and do it that way, or off the tail direct, sorry. So for this, what we do is we take that bunch and we point it forwards. Choose what length you want your wings to be. Again, that'll be a personal preference. I've seen some wolves that are very, very short. And then we're tying that in. So I'm trying not to let that spin around the shank too much if I can help it. So I'm sort of holding it up on top, and then I'm wrapping backwards. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off at a bit of an angle. So as you can see, I'm holding it up slightly, and then I'm going to go in with my scissors, so they're then pointing parallel to the shank of the hook. Because this is an angle, and if I cut like this, it's going to cut a taper into the bunch. Okay, so some of the fibers are much shorter, some of them are a bit longer. I'm going to just put a little bit of varnish into that, and then start to wrap backwards over that. As you can see, it has tightened the whole thing into a neat tapered body, stroke underbody, whatever you want to call it, because we're going to lay our grey floss onto that. So we just take off the excess. So as you can see, wings pointing straight forward. So how you want your wing shape to be, again, is a personal preference, but most people would probably split this. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to turn it towards myself, so you should be able to see it essentially from the underside, and I'm dividing it into two roughly equal sides, and then I'll hold one and I'll take my thread through the gap between them and then through the other way, and I now have two splayed forward wings with a very flat. Again, some people will fish it like that. So what you then do is take several sort of these sort of figure of 8 type loops between that to separate it, and then how tight do you want the wings. So I would tend to leave them quite flared and messy, but some people would actually then wrap around the bunch itself at the base like this, and that allows you to get a very tight wing. You see it compared to the other one that's tightened in. So then if you are going with that, then you go to the other one and go across it and around and around. So you're going slightly up the bunch. It does tend to want to slip off a little bit, so be prepared for that. So don't try and go too far up it. So we now have these little bases around it. So by a squeeze, I can set it upright, pull it that it's sideways, okay, or have them pointing forward. So again, that's totally up to yourself. But once you get it into the position that you want it to be, what I would do is I'd add something that just fixes it in that position. So a bit of varnish or super glue or something like that there, just to set them where you want them to be. Having put the tail on, next we're going to move to the wing again, so we're going to put the wing in place. So I'm going to take off a bunch of our squirrel here. So you'll have to sort of get a feel for yourself of how much is enough and how much is too much. If you take too much off, then the thickness of it can make it quite difficult to tie the fly, because it will build the thickness of the body, and it also will tend to twist more if it's very thick. So I'll take that off. I'm just going to grab it by the tips, and I'm going to give it a flick and get rid of any of the very short underfur that might be there. So again, we transfer hands, take our tying thread up to where we're going to tie it in. So this time I'm going to leave them pointing out a little bit more out the front, so I'm going to travel a little bit further forward than what I did with the grey. And I'm going to set that up, and I'm going to make them maybe 1 and a bit body lengths. So I'm going to start to tighten that up. I'm keeping my thread tight, and I'm holding my bunch of the base of them up as I wrap back. That'll keep it on top of the shank. So now, as we did in the other video, we're going to cut at we're going to cut the scissors straight, but the base of these held up at an angle slightly, and that will give us a bit of a taper into the cut, and therefore allow us a tapered body. So I would do this part of it, the laying in of the wings, the same, even though you're doing the tips of them different, the bases of them are the same to create this tapered body. So if we wrap over that, as I said, I put a little bit of varnish into that just to secure the whole thing as I wrap it down. So I'm wrapping into the wet material basically, and you can see there that it has created this neat tapered body stroke underbody. So now we're going to choose the shape of our wings. So I'm just going to slip this up onto the top, make sure it's straightened up, and then we're going to splay it again. So we're going to splay it forward, we're going to splay it out, and we're going to split it. So just by eye gauge the half and half. I think that's us now. And then I'm just going to, with this one, do the figure of 8 between. Several of them, that'll keep them apart, but in this one I'm not going to wrap the individual wings, so I'm going to leave them more splayed out. Tied. So as you can see with this one, where did I set our other one? So this was the previous fly that we tied, so you can see that we have a much more regimented shape with the wings, and as I said, we could have done that with this style as well, whereas I tend to prefer, say, it that little bit more messy looking. So these wings are not bound down, but you can see here we have that more splayed, flared look. If you wanted, you could also have had those completely out the front, so all the hackling went behind the wings, which would allow you to have them pointing straight out. Some people like that as well. To me, I've never seen a mayfly where the wings pointed totally forwards, but that doesn't mean that Wulffs don't catch a lot of fish. But I would personally have them more upright than that. So that is our fly.